Thank you, Marion. I want to give a special thank you to Marion because she actually walked with me 2 years ago when I was running for re-election. I said, I need someone to walk with me on Saturdays, and she did the door-to-door. And that's the hard work, to carry the clipboard and pull me away from the door when I'm talking to someone too long, and that sort of thing. So she's really a special friend. She's a great lady, and I'm so proud to be here to support her and for what you guys are doing. My story is a little similar, except that I'm not term limited until 2018. I could have sat there in my seat for 2 more years without going through this. So that'll come in later in my story, but I want to start out when I was 5 years old, and I'm not like Mike. My parents didn't ask me where I wanted to move. They just moved from northern Indiana to Palm Beach County. And I was 5 years old when I moved here. I had a horse in my backyard. I lived in western Palm Beach County, which at the time was west of Military Trail off of Purdy Lane, in an unincorporated, unrecorded subdivision. And behind us was a farmer, and he decided he wasn't going to do the cows anymore. So he sold off pieces of property, and he sold my parents an acre behind our little unrecorded cracker house, basically with terrazzo floors and a carport. I had a horse in my backyard, and my sister and I we had a horse and a pony, and we rode together all over. We acted like our horses were transportation. We rode to friends' houses that had pools, and we would ride to their house and swim, and they would ride our horses around, and we would swim in their pool. So, but to me, horses were pets. And friends. I mean, and they got us out of trouble. I mean, there were snakes out there. There were all kinds of things out there. And my horse, when they see one, they do something different, and you better hang on. So anyways, I had a great life growing up here in Palm Beach County. I graduated from North Shore High School in 1981. I graduated a year behind Derek. What was his? Oh gosh, now I'm not getting his name. I'm sorry. Played for the New York Knicks, a famous basketball player. And so, I'm sorry, I'm getting old, aren't I? Yeah. No, he played for the Knicks, but I'll get it later, I'm sorry. He started a golf tournament locally to support local kids, because he did grow up here. But anyways, I graduated from public high school, and I went to North Tech half day for 3 years. My dad was a teacher at North Tech, and he said, I don't want you girls to get out of school without knowing how to do something. So for 3 years, I took architectural drafting. I was 10th grade. In my 11th grade year, I won a state competition and came in 5th in a national design competition for designing. Actually, at that point, it was an office building. The local one was a home. So I went to work full-time. I had 2 classes in high school, and then I worked full-time as a senior in high school, working on homes that were in Jupiter Island. Who would think you're 16, 17 years old, best job I ever had, drafting on homes in Jupiter Island, and for a residential designer that did very high-end homes, who was with Lost Tree Associates originally. So I got started in drafting, supported myself okay, went to work, didn't go to college. I took some classes at Palm Beach State in land surveying, and I worked for a land surveyor in responsible charge. I did subdivisions. I laid out Lakes of Sherbrooke plats. I did Orange Point a few times. The Orange Point subdivision in Wellington, which is now the Isles, the owner of that had us keeping his approvals active by keeping his master plan updated. So I did some master planning in Wellington in 1982, 83 maybe. So I worked in the field in the industry. I married my husband in 1989, and he had a home in Wellington. So I moved to Wellington because that's where Alan was. And we had 3 children. We have a daughter, Jessica, who is 24, and she's getting married this year. I'm very excited about that, to a human. She didn't usually date humans, so we're pretty excited about the human that she picked to marry. So yeah, we love him. He's a great kid, so we're shocked, but we love him. And my son, Dane, is 21, and he's a student at UCF, and he is studying film. He's a film student, which means he'll live on couches probably for the next 10 years until he teaches it someday. So, but he's very talented, and I'm proud of him, but he's into the arts. And my youngest son is a senior at the King's Academy, and he's in the performing arts school there. He had he wasn't the lead role in Jekyll and Hyde, but he was the next male role of Utterson, which is the attorney for Jekyll, and he loves musical theater, and the boy can sing. So, and he can dance, but he never has time to dance because he's singing all the time. So that's my life story, but let's get to where I'm your councilwoman in Wellington now. I ran for elected office 6 years ago, and had never served on a committee, had never attended meetings, because I got involved in traffic calming, because I live on Paddock Drive, and Paddock Drive is a thoroughfare. It is a double yellow stripe, and my house fronts it. And it connects two schools. It connects the Landings Middle School on one end and Wellington Elementary on the other. And those moms who are in a hurry are flying down that road. So we got involved in traffic calming, asking for something, because it's a very wide right-of-way. And it was designed for 50 miles an hour traffic, because my husband's an engineer. I have to deal with all that talk at home about engineering. And he said it's designed for 50. That's why you want to drive 50, because when we make a curve, we make it for a certain speed. So the reason they want to drive 50 on that road is because that's what it was designed for. But then they rated it down to 30. And I said, how are you going to get people to slow down? So after 5 accidents happened right in front of my house, I went and I spoke to the city council, and they had just recently put a traffic circle in on 120th. They had just put that one in on 120th. And I said, if you're going to do a traffic circle for the horses on 120th, what are you going to do for the kids on Paddock Drive? And they did it. They put in a traffic circle that should have been a raised intersection. It's very expensive, but it does slow you down. And they did a raised intersection on Paddock Drive and slowed it down. So Carmine Priori, you'll never forget me, because I came and told them the story about the last accident that happened. The lady who rolled her truck, she was doing 90 miles an hour. She came across my mailbox and went right across the 9-foot asphalt path there, left a rut in it that's still there years later. And she climbed out the driver's seat, and she didn't have anything on under her sundress. And the neighbor men were all like, that's the only story I heard about, was all the, when she climbed out. So so everyone knew what had happened. I wasn't home, I was at church. It happened while I was at church, and so I missed the whole thing. But I heard about it from all my neighbor men, and I told the story, and Carmine never forgot my story. And it helped us with our traffic calming, because that's what we do in city government. We deal with the things that are closest to you. You have a problem like traffic. We talked about State Road 7. We need that evacuation route. It's not just evacuation, but it's for our businesses. And there's 2 hospitals that you can get to from the acreage. Once it's connected, it'll be much easier to get health care. I mean, it's more than just what we like to do. We need that connection. And I have to say, Matt Wilhite and I have served on council together the whole 6 years I've been there. He's been there. And we never ever agree, and he's a grumpy little guy, and we agree completely on State Road 7, and he has been an excellent advocate for State Road 7. So, and I actually sat in for him at the last MPO meeting, and I said, okay, I'm going to have, he said, you're my alternate. I said, I'll do it. And I got up there and I channeled him as much as I could, and I told Mr. James from West Palm Beach, this isn't about you and your Ibis neighborhood. This is about us. And it's a real need that we have. And it's not something we want, it's something that we need. So it did get moved forward. It is moved back up again. They had pushed it back 3 years, but they are moving it back up in the plan. So State Road 7 did get moved back up in the funding mechanism. So we should get it quicker, get it connected. But aside from that, the reasons I'm not running just because they didn't make me vice mayor 2 years ago. We have a practice in Wellington of whoever's the longest serving council member becomes the vice mayor that hasn't served. So 2 years ago it was my turn to be vice mayor, and they said, no, we're just not going to make you vice mayor, even though it's practice to do that. And I hadn't done a thing to bring any kind of reasoning to why I wouldn't be made vice mayor. But they said, no, we just don't want to. And that was what they said, because there's 3 of us. There's 3 of us, and there's 2 of you, me and Howard. So at the end of that night, which they did in front of 90 girls who were baton twirlers from the ages of 5 to 18, a whole room full of girls, and they said, no, we know you're in line for leadership, and it's never been passed before, but we're passing it in front of all these girls. It was embarrassing, honestly. It was personally embarrassing, but that's not why I'm running. But Howard did say at the end of that night, he said, Ann, in 2 years, you and I will still be here, and I'm going to nominate you for vice mayor then. And I said, well, Howard, you won't have to do that if I run for mayor. And so that is when the first time I said it out loud. That's the first time I said it out loud. But it's not because they embarrass me personally. That's not it. I have served this village and dealt with some ridiculous issues. I mean, probably the most irresponsible thing I saw them do was they fired the city attorney at a meeting with no plan to replace him. Now, I understand that you need an attorney to conduct meetings. And they said, no, you're fired now. And I'm like, well, what do we do for the rest of the meeting? Well, you stay through the rest of the meeting. But next week we want a different attorney from your law firm to come here, and then we're going to replace all of you. How are we going to do that? The idea should have been, if they decided that it was time to replace their attorney, which happens, you know, cities decide this isn't working for us, this person isn't providing the skill set we need, you give them a time frame and you replace them. You don't go without legal representation in the meantime. It was irresponsible. Actually, Howard Coates, who served with me, called it reckless. He said, this is reckless. Now, Howard Coates is no longer serving with me, and he didn't nominate me the next time because he's now a judge. He got promoted to judge. And he actually told me he was going to run for mayor. And I'm like, no, I'm running. You don't have to run. So anyways, but he's a judge now, so he cannot run for mayor. But aside from that, the decisions that have been made, I mean, we had 16 clay courts in Wellington, a tennis center that was close to everything. You guys tell me, does any city in the state of Florida have 16 clay courts? Any? Palm Beach Gardens does now. They have 18. They just added 2. They had 14 at the time we had that vote. We had 16 clay courts, 4 of which were brand new. They had just been built in the last few years, and they were self-watering and everything. And they built a $5 million tennis center in a different location that is basically a whole lot of money to spend on one sport that I love. I actually love tennis, and I would rather play on clay because hard courts are dangerous on my knees and everything else, and it slows the ball down. It's great for adult play. Tennis is one of the sports you can play your whole life. I mean, we have our seniors play tennis, and they probably could beat you without even trying, especially now that I haven't played in years. But it's not that I don't love tennis. I love tennis. The $5 million for a tennis center, and it destroyed the synergy of the site. You used to be able to play tennis and look from the, what was the clubhouse. Well, now we're rebuilding the clubhouse, but it won't have anything to do with tennis. It's a very small building now over at tennis, and it's a beautiful facility. Venus Williams came and did the design of the interior. In other words, she picked the color of the carpet. Serena, I'm sorry, I said the wrong sister. Okay, Serena, and she's fabulous and wonderful, but she picked the color of the carpet. I mean, they wanted her at the opening, and it's fantastic. It's a beautiful center, but it's very, very small, the building, because it's just a tennis center now. It's not, it doesn't have the synergy of the site. And the tennis players didn't want it over there. Now, when it comes to K Park, we've had several misfires on K Park. K Park is the 67 acres that Wellington owns that is now farmed. It's a farm, wraps around my church, which is Life Church. Well, it's not mine. A lot of other people go there too. But in the meantime, it's a big 67-acre piece of property that Wellington owns. It was bought by Acme for the utility because we needed a place to put our reused water. And there's a pond there, and that's reused water. So it does have a purpose, but the original plan that was presented, one group came and wanted to build a horse park on it. And this group walked up and said, we want to build a horse park. And they had a plan, and they talked about it, but it's not in the EOZD. Wellington is very unusual. We have something called the Equestrian Overlay Zoning District, and it is just for equestrians. It's set up to protect our equestrian areas for equestrian use. There's development you can't do there. There's certain ways you can only have 2-lane roads. So you guys talk about traffic? You can have 2-lane roads all day long in my equestrian area. You cannot have 4. Because what happens with 4 is cars cut in and out of those horse trailers, and it's not safe. I would rather you have traffic all day long with 2 lanes, one in each direction, where everyone's safe, than have 4 and have, you know, these $1 million horses. All we need is a couple of those to go, and we don't need that. So as difficult as it is to deal with traffic during the season, I will not expand the roadways to 4 lanes because it's one of our EOZD rules that is not to be messed with, and for a very good reason, for an engineering reason. So this horse park group came and they decided they wanted to build a horse park. And they were going to give us $10 million, which they were actually going to pay us out of the tax base once they built it. But we gave them, not we, I voted against it. We gave three council members gave this group 9 months of exclusive negotiation rights with just that one entity. And that's not how you get rid of surplus property for municipal use. I mean, it was bought for a purpose. And if we wanted a horse park on it, that was one issue. But in fact, it's not in the EOZD, it doesn't connect to the EOZD, and it didn't really have a sensible plan. I voted against giving 9 months exclusive negotiations with one group for public property that should have been looked at for a public purpose. The second time it came up, we had another fiasco on K Park because Mr. Wilhite, who I already gave credit to for State Road 7, he said, absolutely not, we're not going to tell them what we want on this. We're going to let the developers tell us what they want. And then they weighted that RFP, the request for proposal process, they weighted it so that 40% was price. Were we broke? Well, we might be after they spent everything, because they have spent everything under the couch cushions. I mean, there's not much left in the bank accounts in Wellington. We're at the level of reserves to keep our bond rating, and that's where we're at. So in the meantime, they were going to sell our 67-acre piece of property that was bought for a public purpose to the highest bidder. That's pretty much what was going on. And the highest bidder was going to be apartments, because that's the best way to get your return on investment right now is to build apartments. And that's not what the residents wanted. It's not what the people wanted. And it was a fiasco. And you cannot, and here's the reason I am running. The reason I am running for mayor is because leadership is important. And the leadership has been not lacking, it's been non-existent. And it's been driven by odd agendas that are not for public purpose. There's not a single discussion that we had about these things I just discussed, including our garbage contract. Our garbage contract discussion started at 12:30 at night. Our meetings go 7-8 hours, okay? 7 or 8 hours for a meeting. We were getting out at 2 in the morning. We started at 2 in the morning, every meeting. For the first 2 years, they were 1, 2 in the morning. Then they got a little bit better. I mean, they finally said, we need to ask the staff why these meetings go on so long. I'm like, we had 2 things on our agenda. It's not the staff. And beating up on staff, we had a planning and zoning number do the Heil Hitler to my planning director. It was all over CNN. And what happened? The 3 of them, and I'm sorry, but there's 3 of them, the 3 of them defended her. She did a Heil Hitler to my planning director in a public meeting that was recorded. And all he was doing was trying to protect the village. She didn't understand what the planning director was proposing. It was an absolute just lack of understanding and lack of respect. They can't treat our planning director better than that. Oh, he's gone now. Yeah, he's gone. He went to work for Del Rey. We've lost our high-level staff. We've lost a lot of them. The ones that we've kept, we've beaten them so badly that they don't even want to do their jobs. And that's why I'm running, because the leadership needs to change. We need to value the staff that we have, that know what they're doing and are good at it. And if they're not, then get rid of them. We've had a village manager since they have been elected 4 years. He has not known 15 minutes after the meeting whether or not he was 15 minutes before the meeting, whether he was going to be fired at any single meeting. They finally signed a contract with him, which wasn't necessary, but they did it. And they, actually the mayor, whom I'm running against, gave Paul Schofield the highest ratings of anyone up there. He gave him higher ratings than me. Well, if that's the case, why would you beat him up at every meeting for the past 4 years? He decided that it was politically expedient for him to like Paul Schofield all of a sudden. And I've never, honestly, as long as I've served on village council, there have been a lot of things that were politically expedient that I could have done. And I haven't taken that road. I've done what was right. When it came to drainage discussion, they wanted to raise our acne assessment 50%. We pay $200 a unit. They were going to make it $300 a unit for every single person who lives in Wellington. And we were going to get 1/4 of an inch of storage out of that, $30 million. $100 per each unit, and we were going to get 1/4 of an inch of storage in flood stage. I said, that's not worth it. I'm sorry, we're going to look like idiots. If we spend, they said, well, we have to do something. I'm going, No, we didn't have water in homes. I'm sorry that there was water and roads were blocked, and we can do some things better. We can clear some pipes. We can do a lot better. But if I'm going to spend $30 million and all I got was 1/4 of an inch, they're going to run us all out of this town, and they should. So I'm running because I just don't think that we've had responsible leadership. And it's not personal. It really isn't. It's just a matter of they're not doing the job the right way. They're not treating everyone equally who comes before them. They only talk to their friends. They don't talk to people they don't like. There's not a single person who's ever called the Village of Wellington and asked for a meeting with the councilwoman and not gotten that meeting, because I meet with everyone. And lots of them I knew did not agree with me. But I would give them their time, and I would listen to them, and I would value what they had to bring. So I'll stop. I think I've used my 15 minutes and then some, but if there's any questions. Any questions? No.